Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to the MMA Sucka Podcast. I am Tim Wheaton, joined as always by the editor-in-chief at MMA Sucka, Frazer Krohn. Frazer, how are you doing today, sir?
Yeah, all good, mate. Looking forward to breaking down UFC 277 with you. We just said off air it was a fun one, so yeah, let's go break it down.
For a card that had almost no excitement coming in, it was pretty notable. It was a lot of fun coming out of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was quite active on both the Sucka social media and my own personal Twitter, saying that there was no hype for this card up until the press conference. I'm not even sure if there was an embedded series. I think there must have been, but I didn't see it. The countdown show wasn't pushed at all by the UFC. They never really pushed them, but I can't imagine it did great numbers. And despite the fact that it probably wouldn't have done great numbers, it's a surprise because, when you do get a fight, maybe like the Oliveira Islam Makhachev countdown, that might not be so good because Islam does, his first language isn't English, so you can't have it on in the background when you're doing other work because you'll be speaking Russian with subtitles. Sure. This one, you got 4 English speakers on the main and co-main events, and yet there was no hype around this card. I think, I tweeted out saying, look, Morning Combat are single-handedly hyping this card. Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas. 3 podcasts last week, burning questions. I did the preview show with with Chuck Minenhall. Yeah, their previews are always for the main events. Aside from MMA Suckers, who, as you know, do the best previews for all events.
That's true.
We're leaders in the game now. But check out Morning Combat because theirs is really good. But
absolutely, yeah, they're super
good. The hype for this card was tiny, and I'm not really sure. I haven't seen any pay-per-view numbers yet, but I can't imagine it did phenomenal pay-per-view numbers because on paper it doesn't really transition over to the casual. Me and you were excited for it. It was the burning questions of, can Amanda Nunes, make the appropriate adjustments? Can Juliana Pena, is she Amanda Nunes' kryptonite in the co-main? Will it go the same way as the first fight? Do we want to see a Moreno-Figgy 4th fight? Kai Kara Francis is knockout artist now. Can he catch Moreno? So we were looking forward to it. And then down the main card, you had the interest in the return of Perez. Derek Lewis is always fun. Ankalaev's real big test against Anthony Smith. Yep. And then even further down the card, then, Drew Dober's always a fun fight. And we had a few debutants down there. So we were excited for it. But it just didn't transition over into the mainstream, I don't think.
No. And the UFC honestly didn't put the hard sell on it because you and I are surrounded algorithmically to MMA in the UFC. Anytime that we go on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, we are always going to see advertisements for MMA stuff. And I would argue that this was a very soft sell on this event, despite really living in this environment quite a bit. But let's jump into Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena because this was a fun fight. And I'm a major fan of Amanda Nunes. Could you imagine Juliana Pena with her legendary toughness and her nearly unstoppable cardio that she showed in this fight, at least? Imagine if she could keep her legs under her when she struck.
Exactly.
Imagine if she could keep her elbows tucked when she threw a punch. Her striking is so bad.
I mean, I really wish I could share my screen with you, but I can't. I've literally got here one of my notes. Pena got that dog in her, but her stand-up is questionable. She managed to cause a large swelling on Nunez. And then the last line is literally what you say. This is why we do the podcast, because we're on the same wavelength. Imagine if she had decent stand-up. I mean, how she caused a swelling on Nunez, I'm really not sure.
But I think it was from the bottom when she was trying to do hammer fists while in guard. That was my guess, but otherwise I didn't see an obvious time when it happened.
It was, yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
She's got that cardio. She's got that dog in her. She's got no quit in her at all.
Yes.
Imagine if she had decent stand-up because, let's be honest, she didn't land any takedowns herself. I'm not even sure how many takedowns she was officially. She was, as per UFC stats, she didn't attempt a single takedown, which in my keys to victory, that was my number one key to victory for Juliana Pena. It was to wear on Nunez, to get her in the clinch. Even if she doesn't get the takedown, make her fight the takedown defense. Get pressed up against the cage. She's a shorter woman. Really drive that head up underneath the neck of Nunez and make it uncomfortable because Nunez's cardio, especially in the last fight, but in history, has been questionable. She does seem to fade in the later rounds where she's happy to just sort of, get the takedown and kind of not do an awful lot with it. This wasn't the case in this fight, but Jermaine Durandamy comes to mind, Felicia Spencer, the the first Valentina fight, Cardio seemed to wane a bit. So that's, in my opinion, what Juliana Pena. I don't know what her coach is seeing her in the gym, but she shouldn't be a striker. So why is she not shot for a single takedown? Was she? I think that maybe that first round shocked Pena with Nunez coming out southpaw. But even in the corner, her team was saying, "Look, we trained for her potentially coming out southpaw. Get fight the lead hand and then get the body lock." She didn't attempt to do that once. So I don't really know what Juliana Pena's tactics were heading into this fight. I think she was just hoping that Nunez would fight the same fight and get into that gunfight, and she didn't. She made the appropriate adjustments and was so good.
Yes, and Amanda Nunes had just put on a career highlight in a fight where she really needed to rise to the occasion. Like, as much as I'm saying Juliana Pena had bad stand-up, Amanda Nunes in this fight exploited it. She angled out, would land one shot, she got a knockdown more than every round in this fight. Like, that's like you can teach striking from what she did in that fight, the angling out and stuff like that. Yeah, she did a brilliant job. She landed multiple takedowns of her own. She made sure her opponent never had a moment. Like, Juliana Pena had two, maybe one close, kind of nice submission. Otherwise, this was a showcase for Amanda Nunes, wasn't it?
Yeah, without doubt. And I think what was really important for me is that Nunes showed. I mean, she showed a huge change in what was it, 6-7 months? And August today, so let's call it best part of 8 months from when she lost the title to when she obviously recaptured the title. To come out and be that good southpaw, we do see a switch now and again, but 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, she'll come out orthodox. She'll fight the entire fight orthodox.
Yeah.
To be able to switch it up and be that effective, switching it up and being that effective, phenomenal stuff from Nunez. And she was never in danger yet, apart from that one armbar attempt. I think that was in the 3rd or 4th round. But yeah. I mean, Joe Rogan on comm saying, "Oh, she's got an omoplata."
It wasn't that close.
I mean, I think she was using it more as a sweep technique, rather. Like in the first fight, she was using the Kimura trap as a sweep technique to get back to her feet. I don't think the omoplata was ever. She was, in my opinion, she was never in danger. And on the ground, she was brutal on the ground. Those elbows, Dana White said that she'd need plastic surgery. She's come out and said, "Oh no, it's just just a few stitches."
Sure,
it is what it is. But she was a bloody mess on the ground. And on the feet, Nunez knew when to disengage, knew when to engage. She disengaged and she re-engaged quickly, and then she'd mixed up her pacing throughout. She'd take 2 steps back and reset, or she'd take that half step back and go again, and then
ace.
She knew when to exchange and when to step back and let Pena throw. And it was just I picked Nunez going into the fight, but I'm surprised at how dominant Nunez was, which in hindsight we shouldn't be. If you look at the past fights of Pena, which I no offense to Juliana Pena, but then she's not a fight of the year kind of fighter. She's not a Michael Chandler-esque. So going through her past fights for my analysis piece wasn't the most entertaining thing, I'll be honest. But
it's really polite. That was a very polite way of saying something.
It's a polite way of saying she's a boring fighter with pretty amateurish stand-up. But she's got that dog in it, which no one can take away from her.
No, yeah, masterclass from Amanda Nunes. It really showed the levels to striking in this game. Fought like the greatest of all time, as she always should have, and got the title that she never should have lost. I think the UFC next, the question is always, what do you do next with these two fighters? I think the UFC usually acts very obvious in these scenarios because Juliana Pena won't work her way back up to a title. She just won't. I think we will see a trilogy at the end of this year. I think that's very obvious. And that's probably the right move for the bank book of the UFC. I would like to see Vieira in there, but even saying that, I understand why they're probably going to do a trilogy, right? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a bit of a review piece and then sort of a little section at the end, like what's next for Amanda Nunes. I've got no interest. I know this is what the UFC. I've got no interest in seeing a Pena rematch. I mean, Pena. You say at the end of the year whether Pena will be ready for the end of the year because that cut on her head was pretty bad. I mean, I know it only takes it'll take up to let's say a month to heal. Then she's got to get back in training camp, get her fitness back up, and she's got massive holes in her game to fight someone like Amanda Nunes, unless she can make it a dogfight, which Nunes now knows that she can. One of the scorecards was 50-43, so 2-10-8 rounds.
Yeah, well deserved as well.
For sure. I mean, the 50-45 scorecard, just going on to the scoring for a second, how can you not call that second round a 10-8? Sorry, she dropped her 3 times, of which she probably could have finished her each time if she really, wanted to engage on the floor. She punched her off her feet.
I know.
That one. I haven't even seen an image of it yet. I've seen the highlight of it. Pena wading forward, and Nunes punched Pena off her feet. Both of her feet came off the ground.
Yep.
Even if that was all Nunes did for the entire, that's a 10-8 round in my opinion. You punch up, but we're talking. We always bang on about scoring criteria and judging. We went through it. I can't remember the fight itself that we broke down, but it's damage first. She knocked her down 3 times, including one where she swung her jaw so hard that her feet came off the floor. That's a 10-8 round. I think 50-44 would have been the right scorecard. Nunez won all 5 without doubt, with that second being a 10-8. Pena didn't ever look like winning a single round. That armbar attempt is what it is, but she was battered for the 4.5 minutes surrounding that armbar attempt. So, but yeah, going back to what we were talking about earlier about what's next.
Yeah,
I don't want to see Pena versus Nunes 3 because it's not competitive. If that was a closer fight at 49-46 or 48-47, then you make the third fight because is there a round in there, the swing round, or she came on late, or Nunes was fading, Pena got off to a slow start, for example. It wasn't close. 50-43. That's not a close fight. Ketlen Vieira probably deserves the next shot at the bantamweight bout. She's coming off two straight wins against 2 former champions in Holly Holm and Miesha Tate. But if you look at how Holly Holmes looked in her recent fights, you look at how Miesha Tate's looked in her recent fights.
I know.
Those wins aren't aging too well.
No.
Raquel Pennington is, she's 4-0 in her last 4, but I've got, again, no interest in seeing that rematch because it wasn't competitive the first time around.
No.
For me, there's 3 possible fights. Kayla Harrison, but again, I don't think the hype around that is even going to be nearly as big as it is. I think Kayla Harrison's tied up in the PFL until 2024 now. She's obviously got this year, and then they're doing that pay-per-view model next year with the super fights, which I think she kind of tied up in the PFL.
Yeah.
Valentina Shevchenko, but Shevchenko was too, Talia Santos was too big for Shevchenko in Shevchenko's last fight. Amanda Nunes is going to be far too big again.
It's true. That's true. Yeah.
Something I spoke about in my article, whether they do it. I think the only way those 2 ladies can fight and let it be a fair fight is if they do a catch weight of 130 or 132. I don't think Nunes makes 130. She's simply too big.
Yeah. And
then, I think Chris Cyborg's now out of contract with Bellator, but whether Cyborg comes back to the UFC, I highly doubt it. And, the 145-pound division doesn't exist.
I know. It has no fighters officially on UFC.com.
She is the champ, and rightfully so. With no disrespect to Nunes, let's stop calling her the champ, because if there isn't a division, you can't be the champ. That's like calling Michelle Watson the atomweight champion of the world. That doesn't exist. There is no atomweight division. It's like calling, let's say Colby Covington, I don't know what you'd call it, light welterweight, 165-pound champion of the world. That division doesn't exist. The featherweight division doesn't exist. Just because you make a fight at 145 pounds, it doesn't mean that division. We're forever getting. We've seen multiple times. We've seen 140-pound fight catch weights when someone steps in on late notice. I know Brad Pickett had a few.
Sure.
And I don't want to say strip her because she hasn't done anything to be stripped. But if there's no division, what is the point? Let's be honest. I mean, that's an argument for another day if we've got a slow week. But she is the champ. She does get a belt over each arm. But it was strange seeing her this week with a belt strapped on each arm. I'm not sure when her last. I believe her last featherweight bout. Yeah, Megan Anderson, March 2021.
I know.
I mean, that finished in 2 minutes. Then you've got Felicia Spencer. That was a 5-round domination.
Yep.
Jermaine Durandamy, I think, was at 135 pounds. So she's not a featherweight. She can make featherweight because she just doesn't cut weight. And the featherweight division is what it is. But I think, like you say, I think the Pena 3 fight might be the one that the route that they go down. But realistically, it should be the Valentina fight. But I think Valentina needs a year at least to put on that size, because she's obviously lost a lot of weight to get down and constantly make 125. And it's not just putting on the size, it's putting on the strength. It's getting used to working in that bigger body, bigger frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we saw with Max Holloway versus Dustin Poirier, there was a massive power disadvantage for Holloway when he moved up to 155.
Yes, that's true.
He needs, fighters when they're moving up, especially when they're moving down, it's slightly different because they are just shedding that weight. They'll, they become slightly faster. They are the bigger fighter going down there, so that in theory they do have that advantage.
Yeah.
Going up in weight, you have the disadvantage of Adesanya versus Blachowicz. He was not strong enough, not powerful enough to get up off his back. Valentina needs to spend 6 months in the gym, deadlifting, bench pressing, squatting, putting on that sheer power, that's raw size, to be able to compete with Nunez. Because if Nunez gets her down, I don't see Valentina getting back to her feet. She couldn't get back to her feet from when she fought Talia Santos, who is a much smaller girl than Nunez. Nunez would come into that fight big. She'd cut a lot of water that week to then balloon straight back up. So I don't think that, before this performance, I probably would have picked Valentina going into it. After this performance, I'm leaning towards Nunez, but we'll have to see what fight gets booked next.
But I think that would be a fun lead-in. Like, two of the better champions in UFC history, and they have a history together and all that stuff. It is possible that their third fight is even more boring than their first two, because they don't have styles that make exciting fights. We've given them a lot of time to make exciting fights in the cage. That fight would suck, right? Like, that has to be a garbage bait, like a lame fight, right?
Yeah, for sure. And
for sure. No, definitely.
Yeah, because you've got Valentina, who would go out there and have to be aggressive because she's 2-0 down in the series. Let's say you don't get an awful lot of rematch trilogy fights where you're 2-0 down and still really have that opportunity to get the third fight.
Yeah,
I know we've seen it more recently with Volkanovski and Holloway, but that's the different. They're standouts in the division. There's no one close to them at 145. But for Nunez, she's 2-0 up in the series. She's just coming off a pretty, let's say they make it next. She's coming off a pretty recent loss, and that was a devastating loss. She quit in there. She tapped to a rear naked choke without any hooks in. She was tired. Yes, she had injuries and whatnot, and that have come out this week. But she knows what she'd have to do to beat Valentina, and that is wrestle, press her up against the cage, take her down, and line her, do just enough, positional changes, strikes and whatnot to not get stood up by the referee.
Yep.
Valentina would have to push forward, therefore making her more susceptible to the takedown. It in my eyes, it's pretty straightforward how that fight goes. Valentina presses forward, Amanda snatches a takedown using her superior size and power. She looked huge in there power-wise in comparison to Juliana Pena, who I don't think could make 125 even if she wanted to.
No.
And yeah, we think that it's going to be a competitive fight. I mean, skill for skill, if they were the same size, it's probably quite a competitive fight. But they're not. They're not. That's like saying, skill for skill, John Jones versus Henry Cejudo. It's a competitive fight.
I know.
It's not, because John Jones would just toss Henry Cejudo around the octagon.
But if they were the same size.
Exactly. This is why we had the pound for pound debate.
Yeah.
But that's why it's a hypothetical debate. Alexander Volkanovski versus Kamaru Usman. Phenomenal fight.
Oh,
never going to happen. It's despite the fact Volkanovski did weigh over 200 pounds once, it's not it's natural, not his natural weight. But it's a difficult one because, like we say, both women are so dominant in their divisions. But it's just not. I don't think a fight between them is competitive purely due to size. This is why we have weight classes.
It's not competitive. It's not enthralling. It's not interesting. It's a trilogy that, like, I think it'd be hard to hype up because guys like you on the inside would be like, I don't know how we watch this fight again. Anyway. Let's move forward onto the flyweight interim title. This was fun. This was so much fun, and I'll give you my full review because I have so many thoughts on this because I picked Kai Kara France going in. So I thought Kai at times looked like the best fighter in the world. Some of his traps were really working, especially in the third round. First 2 rounds, it wasn't lean. I think it was maybe leaning Moreno a little bit more. Third round, it was actually leaning towards Kai Kara-France before he got finished. The problem with Kai, he's clearly so skilled. But you brought this up as well when we discussed this last week. The problem with Kai and the strength of Moreno and Davison Figueiredo is durability. Kai, I don't know that he has that like toughness to push through when he needs to push through, whereas Moreno and Davison Figueiredo have that more than anybody else, like in any division. You know what I mean? They have durability and toughness. Kai Kara-France, it might be the best fighter in the world if he can survive, if he can make it through, if he can push through. Man, I just feel for the kid because he did so well, but Brandon Moreno walked away with a really cool liver kick TKO, so it was awesome. What were your thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Kai Kara-France's mind didn't want to quit in that fight. He would have fought. It's his body gives up on him, that, and it reminds me of the Jessica Andrade, Caitlin Chikagi. I know that was a sort of hook uppercut to the sort of floating ribs, and it reminded me of the Drew Dober finish. These guys they're not knocked out. Their body just shuts down and it just stops working. You can see Kai Kara-France as soon as Moreno landed that kick, and you could hear it. It slapped the sort of liver of Kara-France. His body was just went from hyper aware. Okay, I'm gonna retrieve this head kick or this leg kick to okay, my everything is just, and you saw it. He didn't just back away. He crumbled almost into sort of a fetal ball, and it just says everything that you need to know about the precision of the kick from Moreno and the power and the effect of the strike. I think Moreno threw that with so little caution because he wasn't scared about being taken down from Kai Kara-France. Because Kai Kara-France isn't, he's not going to catch that kick and look to take Moreno down. What he was doing well in the first 2 rounds, although I do think Moreno was probably 2-0 up, is he was blocking the kick and returning with a leg kick instantly. So that either the standing leg or the leg that had just kicked back on the floor, and the leg kick was hitting well. And
Fedor Krokop-esque, like kick out the standing leg, right?
Exactly. And we saw Moreno slightly susceptible to the leg kick against Figgy. And I think Kai Kara-France, that was one of his sort of methods in this fight, and it was working the first 2 rounds. Sorry. The third round for me was the best round of the fight. I know it wasn't a full round, but it was a shame in a way that fight didn't go to the 4th, to the 5th, because, fair play to Brandon Moreno. I thought he was going to win. I thought he might snatch a late submission by hurting Kai Kara-France, and Kai Kai sort of shelling up on the fence line and Moreno being able to snatch a guillotine or something like that. I didn't see it finishing by TKO, but
me neither.
What was disappointing is that the fight was really hotting up in the third round. That bad cut from Moreno. Kai Kara-France was really stinging him with a lot of shots. He was getting his timing down. He's getting his range down, because I think Moreno being on the offensive so much in the first 2 rounds maybe took Kai Kara-France by surprise slightly. That he maybe wasn't expecting Moreno to walk him down as much as he did. So Kai found himself with his back up against the fence, which is something that we didn't see against Askar Askarov so much. Askarov tried to play a little bit more of the counter-attacking game, as did, Cody Garbrandt, and I think it's Bontarin is knockout before Cody. Right. So
you are,
Bontarin. So when these guys don't play Kai Kara-France's game, he struggles ever so slightly. But I think when they do stand off him a little bit, and he's the aggressor, he's the one walking forwards, he's really good. And that's obviously what James Krause and the guys managed to sort of figure out, and that's why Brandon Moreno was so successful in this fight. But like I say, it's a shame it didn't go deeper, because that cut was bad. That was a bad cut. Yes, it was underneath the eye, so it wasn't bleeding into the eye, so the fight wouldn't have stopped. But Kai Kara-France was just kind of almost warming up into that fight.
Yes.
And but fair play to Moreno. He's been on the end of pretty much a one-sided beatdown for 2 minutes. He's got the really bad cut, and yet he's still walking forward. He could have easily taken that round off. He lost that round up until the finish.
Yeah,
and he probably won the first 2 rounds. Maybe one of them was contentious, but he knows he's got that 5-round experience over Kai Kara-France, and yet he's walking forward. He's still throwing shots to finish the fight. Moreno's got that dog in him, just like Juliana Pena did. And now, we'll see a fourth fight between him and Figgy. Let's hope that fourth fight is the last one, because no disrespect to these guys, but I want to see new blood in the flyweight title picture. Pantoja looked phenomenal, and we'll go on to talk about that a little bit later. But the fourth fight is booked now. I think Moreno took Figgy a little bit by surprise when Figgy.
Let's do because the judges' scorecard were all over the place for the first two rounds. You and I both said probably Moreno. He seemed to be.
I saw a 2-0 for Kara France.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What the hell was going on the scorecards? 2-0 Kara France. Second round, everyone agreed was Moreno, and then third round was the TKO finish. But first round. So arguably, if this went 2 more rounds, we could have one of the weirdest split decisions, and Kara France could have walked away champion, coulda, woulda, shoulda, all that good stuff. But Moreno really did show durability, as we know he has. But anyway, so then they cut a post-fight promo, and it was really cute, wasn't it? It was respectful.
It was, I think, like I said, I think Moreno took Figgy a little bit by surprise. Figgy was playing the villain, the bad guy. It was, it was constantly cutting to him. He walked in with his belt, and then Moreno's like, I don't hate you, man. I just, it's is what it is. I don't want to be disrespectful to you. My daughter's watching at home, and Figgy's like, oh shit, I can't push this guy. I can't get up in this guy's face.
Nope.
And I saw Dana White come out and at the post-fight presser and say, I think the UFC disrespected Moreno a little bit. This should have been his moment. But yes, I agree with that to a degree. But at the same time, I mean, that's you're in the business to hype fights. So fourth fight is a hard sell anyway for anybody. Yes, it's 1-1 with a draw, but I mean, you've got the promo now. I know you've got 3 fights worth of promo beforehand, but you've also now got the promo of Moreno there with a big cut under his eye, pouring sweat, having just finished a fight. I figure you walking in there trying to be the villain. So I think the fourth fight is what it is. Will I tune in? Of course I will, because these guys are very skilled guys. But I'm not. The hype for me is not there yet. It might be there closer towards the fight, but the fourth fight doesn't do an awful lot for me, to be honest.
And it's a tough sell, because I could see Moreno winning a fourth fight, and it's another close, contentious decision. We're going to fight a fifth time? You could see Moreno potentially pulling it off. He can make the adjustments, potentially tough it out. But I also like the call out at the end where he was very respectful, because like you and I have talked about with trash talk in the past, trash talk really only works when it's genuine. What we want from fighters is very genuine, honest, true responses. And when it's not that, when you get someone who's really faking trash talk, we're not into it. If you are
for sure,
respect, we're not into it either. We want you to be genuine in there. But cut the promo. We're looking forward to the fourth fight. I mean, honestly, it's fun. I do wish there was a little bit more going on at flyweight. That's why I was hoping Kara France could really pull it off. But let's move on to the biggest boys. Sergey Pavlovich defeats Derek Lewis in an awkward TKO. What do you want to say about this?
I mean, was it an early stoppage? Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but the visuals weren't great when Derek Lewis hits the floor face first on all fours.
I know.
I mean,
give it another 10 seconds, it's probably the same thing happens, most likely.
I think yes, there are rules for the referees, but they also, you've got to take into account these guys are heavyweights. If that happened in the Kara France fight, would it have been stopped? You'd probably not, because these guys don't hit as hard. But if Derek Lewis, taking into account as well that he's coming off, I think, 2 finish losses in a row. He's coming off a couple of finish losses, especially that. I don't stop it. Just stop. 2 of his last 3 fights, Derek Lewis knocked out. He beat Chris Daukaus in the middle of those. But
fair.
He went down on all fours. Almost, I'm pretty sure his head touched the floor. You don't do that if you're completely with it, And I was it an early stoppage? I think you let it go maybe 3 or 4 more strikes.
I agree with you. I agree.
But it's not the worst stoppage I've ever seen. I think, I can't remember who the referee was. It's that Big Dan. So, it's a difficult one, because was it an early stoppage? If he didn't pop straight back up to his feet, No, it's a good stoppage. He went down on all fours, head touched the floor. You're calling that a good stoppage. Because he popped straight back up, you then think, and because it was in the first, if that would have happened in the third round, I think you maybe say, okay, he'd maybe taken a bit of a beating. But for me, I think that the stoppage is all right. The visuals weren't great. If you're completely with it and you just, get caught off balance, you don't go down on all fours. Your head doesn't go down and touch the floor. For Pavlovich, does he have a future in the UFC heavyweight division? No. In my, I just don't see how he beats the top guys. He beats someone like Derek Lewis because Derek Lewis plays his game. They're just going to throw and they're just going to swing. And I found it strange. He got on the mic and was saying, and was sort of raving about his own boxing skill. That was not great boxing. You knocked out Derek Lewis, who is one of the most flat-footed fighters to ever fight in the UFC. No disrespect, but it's a fact.
Yes.
He's, Derek Lewis was ranked number 5 going in, Pavlovich number 11. Don't really know how the rankings will work out, but I don't think Pavlovich beats someone like Volkov, who can keep his distance for 15 minutes if needs be. You compare him, Silgan dances around him. No point putting him in the same question as Stipe Miocic. I think Tartu Avasa can take bigger bombs than Pavlovich to land. Curtis Blades wrestles and beats him. Tom Aspinall absolutely wipes the floor with him. He's too quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the next fight to make is probably Biggie Boy. But, even Rosenstruik, I think he's got better striking than Pavlovich.
I think, but yeah, I know.
It's just, you look down the division, I don't see him. I think Alexander Romanov, who's fighting this weekend, dominates him in the wrestling realm because he's just not, he's not a bad fighter by any means.
No,
but we saw in his, he's got 4 TKO wins in a row.
In the first round as well, and you and I are like, yeah, I know this.
Yeah, I mean, but then if you look at each performance, he's, I personally, I just don't think he's got a future. But he's a name now. He's got that win over Derek Lewis, which is invaluable. He's got that name on his resume because he did come in undefeated, fought Alistair Overeem, lost in his debut to Overeem badly. He's dominated in that fight.
Yeah,
Trying to get the name on his resume. He's now got the name of Derek Lewis on his resume. So he'll get a decent ranked fighter next. But I'm not. This isn't the second coming of Tom Aspinall. This is the first coming of Pavlovich, which I don't think really has too much of a ceiling, to be honest.
This is very much like heavyweight, sometimes susceptible to these kinds of things. I don't want to put Pavlovich down, but who really cares? But heavyweight's very susceptible to these kinds of things happening. Of like Roy Nelson was on a major multi-fight win streak with kind of the same tool set. You know what I mean? At heavyweight, you can be an overhand banger because you pack so much power. You just need one punch to really finish the fight, and that's the division. Sometimes it just sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Mark Hunt is one of the heaviest hitters that we've ever seen in the UFC.
Super skate, Mark Hunt. Big fan of Mark Hunt.
Yeah, phenomenal kickboxer, dreadful wrestler. And he had some favorable matchups. Last time we saw him, Brock Lesnar. Last time we saw Brock Lesnar. Yes, Brock Lesnar was juiced up to his eyeballs, but he was badly out wrestled in that one.
Not even close.
It just, it is what it is. I think Mark Hunt is still, I'll still go back and watch Mark Hunt fights now, but
of course.
He was never going to be the heavyweight champion of the world because he was so one-dimensional. But, same with Pavlovich. I haven't really seen his wrestling game, but I think if he's swinging as wild as he did against Derek Lewis, who is there to be hit, and you get that Derek Lewis name on your someone like a Tom Aspinall, a Curtis Blades, a Stipe Miocic.
Yeah. I
mean, even a Cyril Gane, they probably Gane ducks underneath that, gets a clinch and wears it down. The other 3 guys I just named there absolutely just, they duck underneath those big hooking shots and snatch a double leg and take him down. This is what it is.
I agree with you. Yeah, no point in further breaking that one down. Alexander Pantoja is maybe living up to the hype that he always was supposed to have, getting a first-round submission here, adding to his win streak a little bit more. Is Pantoja the guy we all thought he was, or is it just favorable matchmaking? What do you think?
I think he did exactly what he needed to do against a fighter that's been out for as long as Perez did.
Okay.
Walk into the middle of the octagon, touch gloves, and bang, go straight away. Just go, go, go. And, you know, it's a shame that the Cara France Moreno situation and Figueiredo situation is what it is, because Pantoja's the next guy now. You know, at flyweight, he deserves that next shot. You know, he's ranked. So he's ranked number 4. Askar Askarov ranked number 3, and Askar Askarov's the last guy to beat him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think, do we look at maybe doing an Askar Askarov rematch? But then what do you do with Kai Kara France then? What I think probably will happen is you'll have Figgy versus Moreno 42 or whatever, however many times they fought, and then on the under, on maybe, you know, further down, like with this fight, you'll have Pantoja versus either Askarov or Kai Kara France as a backup in case one of those guys fall out of that fight.
That'd be good. Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm not mad about that at all. Whoever's in that fight, whether it be Askarov or Kai Kara France, Pantoja has to be the other guy in that fight. He's earned it. He's deserved it. You know, he's on a 3-fight win streak now.
Only lost to like the highest levels.
Yeah, you know, he's lost to Askarov and he's lost to Figueiredo since
yeah.
You know, since 2018. He holds that win over Brandon Moreno. He holds a win over, you know, Wilson Hayes, who competed for the title. Holds a win over Matt Schnell, who's coming off a big win. Holds a win over Manal Cape, Brandon Royval, and now Alex Perez. You know, these are good wins, and his losses are
pretty good.
You know, good. If you can have a good loss, it's a good loss. You know, it's you know, he got 30-27 by Davison Figueiredo, but that was fight of the night. They landed, you know, Figueiredo landed 3 more strikes than Pantoja in that fight. Against Askar Askarov, it was, you know, slightly contested, 29-28 in favor of Askarov. But Askarov landed 2 of 15 takedowns. Now, Pantoja's ground game since that fight, he's looked a lot more willing to go to the ground with these guys. So that could be a whole another fight. And obviously, how's Askar Askarov going to look coming off the loss to Kai Kara France?
Yeah.
You know, we assume that he's going to be champion one day, but he's got to get past or through Pantoja again, in my opinion, for him to really cement that championship sort of metal.
Yeah, Flyweight's finally getting interesting. We'll keep moving forward because I don't have anything to add on that one. Magomed Ankalaev fought violently and fought the way he needed to and defeated Anthony Smith, breaking his leg and ankle at the same time. What do we do with Magomed? I think he's finally some new blood at light heavyweight, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's disappointing. You know, the injury was disappointing, but it was only, you know, I didn't see anything in the first round from Anthony Smith to see that he could have defeated Ankalaev. I think Ankalaev absolutely was winning that fight.
Oh yeah, no.
And there's 2 potential fights for Ankalaev next. It's either Jan Blachowicz or Glover Teixeira, depending on what the champion does. You know, if Jiri rematches Glover, you make the Blachowicz fight. If he takes a Blachowicz fight, you make the Glover fight. It's fairly simple in my eyes. You know, Alexander Rakic coming off the loss.
Sure.
He's just, you know, Ankalaev's ranked number 4. He's just beaten Anthony Smith. We've said it for, you know, since we started doing the podcast. Ankalaev's the future of this division.
Yeah.
He can go under the radar as a boring fighter. You know, if you remember, he went 5 rounds with Thiago Santos. I think it was Thiago Santos last time out. The most forgettable 5 rounds of his career thus far. You know, yeah, 5 rounds. And technically, you know, this is a finish. I mean, it's a finish maybe due to the injury. Anthony Smith, obviously, as we know, either broke his ankle or broke his leg, or he's done something. I haven't heard anything on that yet.
No.
But he burst onto the scene with a loss to our boy Paul Craig. But after that, you know, finish, unanimous decision, finish. And he's gone to decision 3 times now in a row, of which I can't remember any of those fights. I'll be honest. I don't remember the Nikita Krylov, Volkan Ozdemir, or Thiago Santos fights. Now that he's got a finish over Anthony Smith, I think it does well for his it does well for his on paper record. So I think that's good for Ankalaev. But yeah, depending, you know, he's waiting on Jiri Prochazka now. If Prochazka goes Blachowicz, you make the Teixeira fight. If he goes to Teixeira rematch, you go the Blachowicz fight.
Despite wins over Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Volkan Ozdemir, his biggest highlight is and Nikita Krylov, like you said, his biggest highlight is Ion Kutalaba. That's what we know.
Exactly.
All I can think about when I see the man is the 2 fights with Ion Kutalaba.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I remember him getting submitted by Paul Craig. I was there, and it's still, that's how I always picture him.
And honestly, style-wise, Paul Craig might still win that fight.
Sure. If Paul Craig learns how to finish a takedown, he potentially finishes that fight.
Man, what kind of gods are you praying to? If he finishes, come on. Okay, so we got a performance bonus for Drew Dober, who was having fun in there. Made this fight feel like it was a major, big fight. This was a lot of fun. Drew Dober gets a TKO finish. What are your thoughts on Drew Dober? It's like, what do you do with him as well? It seems like he's
the perennial top 18 guy, isn't he? I think. He was Rafa Alves anyway was unlucky not to get, like you say, you get the performance bonus for Drew Dober. I think Alves is lucky not to get a little bit of a bonus. That was a really fun fight.
It was.
Alves in there dancing, messing around with Drew Dober, hands down, slipping shots on the fence.
Yeah.
That one of the shots, I think you must have seen the highlight of Drew Dober taking that swinging. I think it was a left hook straight on the chin and just carry on walking forward. Yeah, no worries.
Unreal.
Like you say, what do you do with Drew Dober? He's coming off two finishes in a row, but then you look at the guys he's lost to. His last 3 losses: Beneil Dariush in and around the title shot, Islam Makhachev, the next title contender, Brad Riddell, top 15 guy. It's difficult to know what to do with him next because he's so good, but he's just not quite good enough. Do you put him in there against Tony Ferguson, who's championship metal but has very much fallen off? I'm just looking at the rankings on Tapology at the moment. Above him in the rankings, Brad Riddell. Don't want to make that rematch. Jalen Turner, that's a good fight. Demir Ismagulov, good fight. Gregor Gillespie, Arman Sarukian. And then you're looking at the very upper echelons where I think you need to get a few more wins to really get into that sort of upper echelons of the division because he isn't ranked. I mean,
I know.
I think he's a really good fighter. He's a really fun fighter. I'll always tune into a Drew Dober fight, especially after that one. But like I say, they were lucky not to get fight of the night because for me, that was as entertaining a fight as Moreno Carcara France, especially because you had the antics of Rafael Alves there, hands down, slipping shots against the fence. And then the finish as well, the sort of left hook, left uppercut to the ribs was. I love a finish like that. A leg kick finish and a liver shot finish are what I watch MMA for.
Oh man, leg kick TKO. Oh, I could watch that crap
Edson Barboza all day.
So we also Drew Dober, I think, takes the place of like where we used to fit Donald Cerrone into cards of like this guy will always be fun. He's always a crowd pleaser. He's technically sound, and beating him actually is kind of a fairly good deal. He's a good gatekeeper and stuff like that. But like you said, he doesn't beat anybody ahead of him, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a reason that he fights people like Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush,
Right.
and the other person I said, Brad Riddell. Islam Makhachev. That's probably. You're talking probably Islam Makhachev's biggest win is Drew Dober, aside from maybe a Dan Hooker who was on a bit of a downward spiral. But Drew Dober is his game, and Islam Makhachev's got a win over him. That's a big win for Islam Makhachev. So you're looking at Drew Dober to be a real contender. Yeah, he's got to shore things up, and I don't like you say. I think he's a Donald Cerrone of the division now, where he's been in the UFC for you can't remember a time that he's not been in the UFC, although. He looks really young still. He'll always put on a fun fight, even if he loses. He's always gonna look to put on a fun fight. Like this fight, Rafael Alves. Drew Dober could have stayed. Alves was happy to have his back up against the fence, and he could have just jabbed his way to victory. And no, he's still swinging. He's willing to get knocked out to land the knockout, and we saw that at the weekend. And like I say, I'll always tune in for a Drew Dober fight, and he always seems to fight. I expect to see him again October or December, end of the year,
Another fun one. Win or lose. It's going to be a fun one for Drew Dober. Doesn't matter who he faces. We also had Hamdi get a win. We had Drakkar Klose get a win. We had Michael Morales get a win. Jocelyn Edwards, my girl, got a win as well. And then a couple, like, what else did you see on this UFC 277, or do you want to move forward?
I think we pretty much covered it all. Blood Diamond picks up another loss, despite the fact that he's probably got the best name to ever grace the octagon. Being friends with Israel Adesanya shouldn't get you a place in the UFC. And, he was 3-0 when he entered the UFC. Didn't enter on short notice, I don't think. I think he just entered on ability.
I know.
And he's not UFC ready. He's a guy that needs to go back to I wouldn't say even the regional circuit. Maybe, he fights, but naturally he's going to go back to the regional circuit. But I think he's too good for the regional circuit, but nowhere near UFC level yet.
No.
So
I kind of fed him like a couple of not softballs, but like stuff that if you're good, you should win.
Yeah, for sure. In Israel Adesanya fed Rob Wilkinson, who is a solid fighter, but is someone that he should be beating, and he did. He dominated him. Blood Diamond, fun name, not really got the hype maybe he deserved, but hasn't got the skill to cut it in the UFC yet. I think, a few more fights outside the UFC, maybe a contender series sort of path for him. But yeah, it's disappointing because, I always want to say Blood Diamond. It's a cool name to say.
Oh, it's such a good name. You know what I was thinking about as well with, like, you mentioned Israel Adesanya. Blood Diamond and Paddy Pimblett are being fed maybe softball fights. Whereas Israel Adesanya, the UFC will make it very clear if they respect you or not and how they want to build you up. Because Conor and Israel Adesanya actually had a really hard run of, like, they were thrown right into top 15 guys who all those wins aged very well for both of those guys. It's very clear when the UFC respects you and gives you hard fights, like Brad Tavares, Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson. Those were Israel Adesanya's like opening fights after Rob Wilkinson, of course. Same with Conor. It was like Marcus Brimage, and I'm forgetting a few other guys, but like every guy that
Randall, who's a tough winner, Dennis Seaver, obviously Max Holloway.
These are notable hard.
He was scheduled to fight people like Cole Miller, who pulled out, and then he gets, like you say, Conor gets these, and Izzy, you might not like them, but they've proven themselves. Now you compare that to and he's taken a huge step up in competition. Sean O'Malley.
Oh yeah.
Sean O'Malley's been given quote unquote gimme fights where he is expected to. Thomas Almeida. Let's show all the highlights of Thomas Almeida's career. He was coming off, I think, 3 straight losses, 2 of which were a knockout or something like that. No wonder Sean O'Malley, Eddie Wineland. They're completely different ends of their career. Sean O'Malley's pretty much just starting out in his career. Eddie Wineland, pretty sure he's retired now. He's
retired. That's it. Yes. Are you still there?
Frazer. Are we back? Yeah, we're back.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's like you say. We complain when guys get easy fights. We complain when guys get too hard fights, but you got to find that happy medium. And I think for people like McGregor and Adesanya, where they've got that hype around them, to get the quote unquote easy fight hasn't been. McGregor fighting Cowboy. Well, he probably deserves an easy fight after the murderer's row that he went through. But it is what it is. Blood Diamond. It was fun while it lasted. I don't see him getting another one, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The UFC will make it very clear if they're trying to get you into the title mix or if the UFC is just trying to feed you. Anyway, let's look a little bit forward. I don't know how much we want to talk about this card. We have UFC Fight Night Santos versus Hill, Thiago Santos versus Jamala Hill. Jamala Hill, just I don't know how to analyze him. He's great overhand. Some actually very good wins over Jimmy Crute and Johnny Walker here. Didn't look amazing in those fights versus Thiago Santos, who mixes like knees, no knees, win, losses, stuff like that. What an awkward. This is very light heavyweight, isn't it? The banger versus sure. the guy who can't even walk.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't get Jamala Hill. He doesn't look like he should have that much power. He doesn't really throw like he should have that. And yeah, he's good. I mean, that win against Johnny Walker last time, I think that was his last fight. Yeah, with a good win.
But like you said, the knockout punches aren't crushing. They're weird knockout punches that knock guys out.
For sure, and obviously he just knows where to, precision beats power. So he must be just precise with his shots. And for me, I think how do you prepare for Thiago Santos? Well, you do a camp just beforehand for Johnny Walker. These two guys will throw flying knees. They will throw huge shots. I'm excited for the main event, and I'm excited for the co-main event. Outside of that, it gets a little bit dicey. I've got no qualms in admitting I haven't watched a single second of Tough, but you've got the two Tough finals on there.
Yep. Sure.
Got the return of Ariane Lipski. You've got everybody's favorite gatekeeper, Sam Alvey, still getting work in the UFC. Has not won a fight since 2018. And he's coming off the back of 7 fights without a win.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing?
Stop it. Stop. Cut Sam Alvey. Let the boy
And it's
go.
not like, he lost to Jimmy Crute. He lost to Ryan Spann. Yeah, these are fair wins. But then he lost to Brendan Allen, who was coming up in weight. He lost to Wellington Turman, who isn't going to be Julian Marquez, who's got the Cuban Missile Crisis. Brilliant nickname, but he's never going to make it to the top of the division.
No.
Stop giving Sam Alvey work. It's not. There's plenty of fights outside of the UFC that can't get in the UFC. Why are we still giving this guy work? But it is what it is. But there's some interesting women's fights. Stephanie Egger obviously coming off. I think her last fight was the finish of Jessie Rose Clark. Yeah, it was. So she's coming off two straight losses against Bueno Silva, who's coming off just the one win. Corey Mckenna returns. The young Welsh fighter that trains out of Uriah Faber's gym, which I can't remember what it's called. The famous Team Alpha Male, of course. Yeah. She returns. Suffered her first UFC loss in her second fight in London in March. Not really sure why she wasn't on the London card last week. 2 weeks ago, but it is what it is. She's fighting Miranda Granger, who came into the UFC with a lot of hype. Yep. Miranda Granger, and hasn't lived up to it. She's 1-2 in the UFC. She beat Hannah Goldie, but then lost to Amanda Lemos.
Beat Hannah Goldie.
Exactly. If you're not doing spinning elbows, you're not trying against Hannah Goldie. She lost to Amanda Lemos, lost to Ashley Yoder, and now she returns for the first time in a year and a half to fight Corey McKenna. Good fight for McKenna, in my opinion. And we've got the return of, both Terence McKinney and Ariane Lipski, who are two exciting strikers. And, Terence McKinney quite literally burst onto the scene with that 7-second knockout of Matt Favola. He then finished Zahim by rear naked choke, but then he had that slight slip up against Drew Dober last time out.
Yep.
I'm excited for Terence McKinney because he's young still. I think he's 27 and he's got a big future ahead of him if he can just. I think he bought into his own hype a little bit against Drew Dober after knocking Drew Dober down.
Yeah.
I hope he takes it a little bit easy. I want to see Terence McKinney get into that second, third round. I think Eric Gonzalez is going to be the kind of guy that does push him into that sort of later rounds. He doesn't go away easy, as it were. Yes, he was knocked out by Jim Miller, but, Jim Miller being Jim Miller is just doing veteran shit in there. And then I think the other highlight for me is Ariane Lipski returning. It doesn't do an awful lot for the division, but she's always an exciting fighter. She's coming off the win against Mandy Baum last time out.
Yes.
Against Priscilla Cachoeira, who strange fighter, Priscilla Cachoeira, in my opinion.
Can't read her. It's like, is she really good? Is she really bad? I can't tell.
I think she's famous for getting brutalized by Valentina. She then lost to Molly McCann. She lost to Luana Carolina. Mm-hmm. She then. Two knockout victories. Then she lost to Gillian Robertson when she was crawling. I think she was. That was the fight when she was scratching at the eyes of Robertson.
Oh, yeah, that was.
She's got a unanimous decision victory last time out. This card, if you miss this card, I don't think there's going to be. I'll say this now, but I don't think there's going to be an awful lot of highlights. If there's one card to watch this week, it's the PFL card.
Break it down. Tell us a little bit more about PFL because like you said, there's nothing on this fight night.
The UFC Fight Night, outside of the main event, we've got Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal as well, co-main event, which is a great fight, but
it is.
I think Vicente Luque might brutalize him. It is what it is. But yeah, this one for me it's an exciting card. PFL 7 main event, strange main event for me. Anthony Pettis versus Stevie Ray, which I'm not mad about the main event. I think it's a great main event, but these two guys just fought. I don't know why, the tournament bracket is what it is, but Yeah, these two guys quite literally just fought last month. Well, I mean it's the 1st of August today, but they fought at the end of June. Stevie Ray finished it by that modified twister.
I don't think it
And
goes differently either. I think Stevie Ray wins this fight. It's Anthony Pettis just isn't there anymore, is he?
especially coming off that loss just a month ago, how what does that do for your mental? But that's the main event. Further down the card, we've got Acmadeirao versus Silvera stepping in on short notice after Antonio Carlos Jr. withdrew, which is a shame. We got
Undefeated though.
9-0, and he's. I haven't seen an awful lot of his fights. I think I saw his last fight. I watched it ahead of an interview that I did this week. He's good, but he's not. I think Acmadeirao probably gets it done. It's just that experience. I think he probably gets it done.
Yes.
And then we've got UFC veterans Oliver Aubin Mercier, returning, and Rob Wilkinson, who we spoke about earlier, returning. And we've got also one that I'm personally looking forward to. I interviewed Corey Hendricks this week for the MMA Sucka. He's returning in a rematch against Martin Hamlet. He rallied in that fight. He was having a bit of a tough time of it, and he rallied to finish that fight. He returns to look to sort of punch his ticket into the light heavyweight tournament bracket next season. So keep an eye out on that. Outside of that, we haven't really got anyone. We've got, pretty much, there's 4 postlims that kind of tell you everything you need to know about the card. But the main card and the 2 prelims.
Scheduling PFL is so weird sometimes, aren't they?
It's just difficult to read, isn't it? Sometimes, but
1-1, aren't they? Like what?
Yeah, for sure. Like we say, it's the main card and the prelims are quite good for PFL 7. Aside from that,
Skip the
not.
Yeah,
the postlims are what they are. You're not going to get any stars, I don't think. And we've got a contender series, which I'll be keeping a bit of an eye to, because we've got Chris Duncan, Scottish fighter, who has already had his chance on the contender series. Was knocked out by Borshev.
Yeah,
he's got a win, in February, I think, or May. I can't work out whether this is. He's got a win in May.
Yeah,
and he's here again to try and defeat a guy called Charlie Campbell. I don't know anything about Charlie Campbell, but as per his Tapology picture, he trains with Matt Serra and Ray Longo. So expect him. I'm hoping they'll be in the corner, because I love their corner work. But I do hope that Chris Duncan gets it through. We need more Scottish fighters in the UFC. At the end of the day, we got Paul Craig. We had Joanne Calderwood, but she's obviously been cut now. So let's hope Chris Duncan can get it done in good fashion and get that contract.
I'm going to make the argument, as I usually do with fighters not from the US, that he needs to move somewhere. This is Chris Duncan. He needs to move somewhere with an actual MMA gym. He's fighting out of Alloa, Scotland, a town of about 15,000 people. That's not world-class MMA training. You got to go do a camp at somewhere in the US to really pick up the training. But I'm hoping all the best for Chris Duncan,
Yeah, for sure. And like you say,
he's from Sterling originally, and that's cool. But I don't know, he moved to Alloa. I don't know that the world's best MMA is in Alloa.
Yeah, you won't get the bodies in Alloa that you will even if he just moves down to London shoot fighters. If he doesn't want to move that far down, go to Team Carbon. You'll get plenty of bodies there.
Yeah.
UFC gym in Nottingham, Hardy Warhead in Nottingham, Dan Hardy and Jim Warhead's gym.
Amazing.
Let's hope that he is getting it. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't looked an awful lot into what he's doing, but let's hope that he's getting enough training with enough good bodies. Chris Bungard is up in Scotland. Let's hope he's been training with Bungard a little bit, and let's hope that he can get the win. And like I say, let's hope he can do it in good fashion, where he can get another Scottish name on the books at the UFC.
Oh, I agree with you. I think it'd be great. Big fans there. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Tim Wheaton, Frazer Krohn, MMA Sucka. What else you got going on this week on the site, sir?
Yeah, I'll be looking at. I'll be transcribing the interview that I did with Corey Hendricks. It's on YouTube now if you want to go and check that out. And you will have a couple of PFL previews down the week, and we'll keep our eye on all the breaking news. Jake Paul and Hasim Ratman's no longer going ahead, so we don't have to talk about that. Hopefully for another 6 months. So all's good in the world of combat sports when Jake Paul isn't fighting.
Oh, I'm just getting word. Slight update for you. Chris Duncan did spend a lot of time training out of ATT, so we're back. We're back. He's great, actually.
And there goes my pick for Chris Duncan by finishing the first round. Thank you very much.
Perfect. All right, let's get out of here for the week. Thank you so much for your time, Frazer.
Take it easy. Cheers.